Welcome everyone to the Security Token Crash Course. My name is Grant Gulovsen. I'm an attorney based in Illinois. I really wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to watch this course. One of the main reasons I decided to offer it was because I felt there was quite a lot of misinformation being put out there about security tokens. Personally, I feel that security tokens have gotten both an unacceptable amount of bad press and also an unacceptable amount of good press. And what I mean by that is, although there are definitely benefits to issuing tokenized securities, it is not the be-all and end-all that some people in the security token industry want you to believe. So although I feel that initial coin offerings, ICOs, were something of a fluke and fundamentally flawed, I don't believe that security tokens are going to be the cure for what ails the cryptocurrency marketplace right now. It's not the saving grace and is going to resuscitate the value of Bitcoin. That is not what security tokens were designed to do, and is certainly not what they're going to do. And I just want to make that clear at the beginning. So with that out of the way, let me put something else in the way, the disclaimers that I have to give you. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard this before, but I'll say it again. All the content of this course is being offered for informational, educational, and maybe a little bit of entertainment purposes only. I try to make it a little bit funny because can be rather dry at times. That said, none of it should be construed as legal advice. It's not intended to be legal advice, and it is not legal advice. And if you've ever wondered what is meant by that and why you hear it all the time, it's because as an attorney, if I want to give you proper legal advice, I need to have a conversation with you. I need to be able to ask you questions. You need to be able to ask me questions. And we both need to fully understand what it is we're talking about before I can apply the law to the specific facts that your situation involves. The most important thing is that you don't act on any information that you've heard in this course without first consulting with a qualified legal professional. The course is going to be divided into 4 parts. I call the first one an introduction. That's this one. And then there'll be 3 more, parts 1, 2, and 3, that are more substantive. What I'll be doing in the introduction is just sort of introducing, well, this is what I'm doing now, giving you an overview of the course, the format, talking a little bit about myself, talking a little bit about what I do. I also should say that some of what you'll be hearing was pre-recorded from a previous class that I did. So if it sounds like I'm talking to students, I actually am. I'm not going crazy. I also want to point out that this course is designed for people who are at least somewhat familiar with cryptocurrency, with Bitcoin, Ethereum, ICOs, initial coin offerings. If all of these terms that I'm putting out there are meaningless to you, then this is not a class that you will want to watch, because you're probably not going to understand much and it won't be very valuable to you. But if you do understand those things, it does not require any it's designed for people who are not familiar with securities laws, but who are at least a little bit familiar with cryptocurrency. In particular, it is designed for individuals who were involved in the initial coin offering mania of the past couple of years and are kind of wondering, well, what's the security token thing all about? It is not, however, a class that is designed to make you an expert. It is not designed to put you in a position where you should feel confident to become an advisor to a security token offering. Part of the reason for that is the term advisor has a very different meaning in the security token context, or with any kind of security, than it does with initial coin offerings. An advisor for an initial coin offering could be someone who just does marketing, who gives advice on marketing, or who gives legal advice. But in the security token security context, an advisor is a person who gives advice about investing. So calling yourself a security token advisor is actually inappropriate. So make sure that you do not use terminology that will get you in trouble. And calling yourself an advisor in the security token context is technically inappropriate. So at least in the US. So be aware of that. And don't assume that this class is going to qualify you to call yourself that, because it's not. So that said, we can go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. The security token crash course. Introductory part of this is really just kind of why are we doing this? What's the point? Obviously, we're going to be talking about security tokens and security token offerings. You may have heard them. Actually, I believe in our in that group chat earlier, there was some discussion / debate over what the proper terminology was. And the correct answer is they're all correct and all incorrect, I guess, because there is no correct terminology to use. People refer to them as security tokens, digital securities, and then it used to be ICOs, now it's STOs, security token offerings, DSOs for digital security offerings. There are lots of different ways to refer to these things. They all mean the same thing. So there's no point really getting hung up on that. The three main topics today are: number one, what is a security token? Number two, what makes a security token compliant, which is very important, and also a different issue than just what is a security token. Number three, the most important of all, is how do you do this? How do you actually make a security token or a security token offering compliant? And for a lot of people, that is the sort of the heart of the class and the most important part, and definitely one that I think everyone should stick around for, because it is where I try to answer as much as I can and also show you all the things that are really involved in doing this thing right, because it's not easy. I'm just going to very briefly talk about myself. I think I sent you guys links to the website, so you can always check it out if you want. I was born in New York City. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I can tell you it was a very long time ago. When you see my graduation dates, you can probably kind of guess how old I am. I got a undergrad in philosophy and minor in computer science in 1991 from Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. And then I got my law degree from the University of Illinois College of Law in 1998. I took the bar, sat for the bar, same year passed, and worked at a civil and commercial litigation firm, starting out as an associate, worked my way up to partner for several years. Did that until about 2013. Litigation is definitely exciting, and I know a lot of lawyers, so they don't do the litigation track, but for me, it only kind of made sense. What's the point of going to law school if you're not going to be a litigator and be in the courtroom a lot? At the same time, it's really wearing. And after that, like 15 years or so, that was really enough for me. So I started my own solo practice. One of the nice things about doing that is I got to try different areas of the law that I'd had some experience with, but not as much as I wanted, like intellectual properties is one in particular. So around the same time as when I got into crypto, started buying Bitcoin in 2013. And obviously, in retrospect, I wish I hadn't have done this, but after the first Mt. Gox hack and crash, although it sounds like we might be having a second attempt, hopefully not, but I sold it all, because that was just between Silk Road and Mt. Gox crashing. That was, for me back then, that was just way, way too much. So I got out, and in retrospect, the silver lining, I guess, to that whole incident, despite the fact that I have a hell of a lot more money right now if I'd held on to it, is that it sort of toughened me up to all of the ups and downs that we've had over the past 2 years since I've gotten back into it. So really, that I don't even really look at the markets, at the prices or any. I know some of the people in this class are into the technical analysis, and they're trading and watching everything. I don't do that at all, because it just doesn't do anything for me, and it just kind of, if anything, it stresses me out. And I don't want to do what I did now like I did back in 2014, because that was a huge mistake. I didn't really get back into it. I think I touched on this a little bit until 2017, when I saw what was going on with ICOs. I had just started hearing about them and Ethereum, and it seemed like there was a role for an attorney who understood the technology, at least had got his hands dirty with it for about a year or whatever. In 2013, 2014, I understood how it worked. And with the intellectual property and some of the other background I had, is like working with startups and stuff, it seemed like a good fit. So I just started picking up a few clients here and there. And then by the end of 2017, pretty much all of my practice, I think, or a vast majority of it, was crypto, startup, blockchain related. And then by first part of 2018, and ever since then till now, it's the same, even with the market being so lousy. So terminology, real quick, I think most of you guys know this, but the terms STO, DSO, ICO, they really have no legal significance at all. They are marketing terms. They've always been marketing terms. There are some jurisdictions where they refer to security tokens. Utility tokens is another example, where most jurisdictions they're not defined, but in some, like Switzerland, they are, and I think maybe Wyoming too. But they're really just marketing terms used by the industry, air quotes industry, to get people hyped about it. And then that's why it went from ICO to STO, and ICO kind of got a bad name. And now people are worried the STO has a bad name because it's got the token in it. So that's why people are saying DSO. Just whatever. They both mean the same thing. There's, like I said, there's no reason to get hung up on it. Now, the term security does have legal significance, and that's what we're going to be talking about in part one. Before we get started, though, I did want to ask this as a rhetorical question. You don't need to answer it, but
not so much actually more recently, but even just like a few weeks ago, I was getting pushback from people. Why are we learning about security tokens? They're stupid. We want to do ICOs. ICOs are going to come back. And you read that article in ICO Bench about however hundreds of millions of dollars being raised, which I think is BS, by the way, because I talked to my people in South Korea and they said the market's just dead. I mean, it's just everything's just tanking. People are lucky to raise like $1 million. So, why bother learning about them? Here's why. Because, again, if you look at the chart, the numbers don't lie. The fundraising levels of ICOs are in the toilet. Again, there's some anecdotal evidence that maybe there's some life coming back into it, but everything I've seen, I haven't seen any evidence of it myself. I've just heard, people talking about it, and that doesn't mean much. I used to be an ICO apologist, even though I always felt there's something about them just didn't seem right. And, I think there's a way to do them, but I haven't seen it done the way I think it's supposed to be done yet. And maybe we just have to wait for that. But I'll just be honest with you guys. I don't know if STOs, security tokens, are any better. I honestly don't. And I don't want you guys to think that I've been accused of being like I'm a STO lover or whatever. I think someone said that on LinkedIn, and that's whatever. But the point is, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be successful, because whether they offer anything that you can't get with other forms of privately issued securities has not been answered yet, because it's still very new. So I still think, though, that it's worth learning about them, if for no other reason than that's where the money is going right now. Not everywhere, but especially like in the US, North America, and I know in parts of Europe. And I mean, even in Asia, people are asking more and more about STOs. I'm working with a project out of South Korea that wants to do an STO in the US and Canada, because they believe that's where the investors are. And I think that's probably right. If the ICO market's tanking and you've got something you want to raise money with, and you're in the token blockchain business, may as well try an STO, I guess. So that's that's sort of the general mentality, I think, of the industry now. That's why I think it's worth learning about. So there you go. That's pretty much just my intro. Any questions? If anybody has any questions, shoot.
As you probably guessed, that was one of the pre-recorded sessions I had mentioned earlier. So instead of asking questions, if you do have questions, you may email them to me. The email address is grant@gulovsen.io, and I don't expect you to be able to spell that. So instead of doing that, I'd suggest finding one of those emails I sent you and replying to it. That'll work just as well. Otherwise, that concludes the introduction to the Security Token Crash Course. I hope to have the next session up shortly, so I'll look forward to seeing you then.